Hey everyone, good morning. Welcome to Daily Drop In, bright and early every single morning at 7 o'clock Eastern, Monday through Friday. We like to come live, share some positivity with you, share some fun dialogue with you. I have Debbie here with me this morning, so you know that it's going to be good. For those of you who have been connected to Debbie, you know she does all things tech. So we have a lot that we'll be able to dive into, especially with our theme this week being communication. So we have a whole lot coming up. Please make sure you fill up your coffee cup, relax, get ready to start your morning with some great Teach Better family time, and we'll be right back. Good morning, good morning. Hey everyone, welcome to Daily Drop-In Morning Show with the Teach Better team. Debbie, I am so thrilled that you were able to wake up bright and early this morning and join us. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good. I'm really excited to be here today. I spend a lot of time listening to you guys in the morning.
Well, I think it's wonderful that you are now joining us on screen. I know we always love when you jump in the comments to participate during our morning show, but it'll be nice this morning to hear your voice and talk shop. So I'm thrilled you're here. We are getting a lot of comments already sharing Good morning messages. So it's so good to see all of you. Good morning, bright and early. You know, Debbie, for people who may not be connected to you, I would love to have you share kind of what you do in education, how you're affiliated with the team, kind of all those layers, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. So I am an elementary school tech coach in Northern Virginia. And in addition to the work I do each day, where I work with teachers and help them integrate technology into instruction, in addition, I work with students. I do a lot of different things with students this year. I've been teaching STEAM a little bit. I work with my K-1s, helping them use technology. And in addition, I do a lot of stuff with social media and communication with the school. And then outside of school, I have a whole nother life that seems to have developed in the last year or so. I have been presenting a lot of different places, which has been super exciting, sharing the wonderful things going on in my school. And in addition to that, I blog regularly for myself on my website, Tannenbaum Tech. I also blog regularly for the Teach Better team. And let's see what else. As far as the teach, and then I guess excitingly, I had a book published last year. So really exciting. And then as far as the Teach Better team, I'm a Teach Better ambassador. I'm a Teach Better blogger. And I am part of the Teach Better Edupreneur group. I think that's all the titles I have with Teach Better.
Awesome. I love that you've chosen to be involved in so many different pockets, in addition to then just your story, your message, the work that you do as well. So it's so cool to kind of hear all these different layers in your experience on, all the pieces that you're involved in. That's so wonderful. We have so many people in the comments saying good morning. I know that you being an ambassador, our ambassadors are showing up bright and early for you.
That's so awesome.
Always so fun. Yes. So I know, Debbie, that you do a lot of work in tech. I know even in your sharing this morning so far, you've been able to share that. The book, I know, was a huge project for you. Obviously, you're part of our celebration yesterday. Our incredible Teach Better team member, Joshua Stamper, published a book yesterday for leadership. So I love when people are able to take their passions and do work around their passions, whether people are facilitating a podcast, writing a book, blogging. It's always so wonderful to be able to consume people's stories and people's ideas of their passion projects. What's your book about? Do you mind sharing?
No, not at all. So my book is really about my journey. It's called Transform: Techie Notes to Make Learning Sticky. And it really starts with the beginning of my career, which was a little dicey. I'm happy to share it for the new teachers who are like, oh, everybody has it all together. You don't. It talks about how I started off teaching behind closed doors and how I discovered technology, and it kind of changed everything for me. It shares how the transform tech tools that I use that I feel like really amplify learning for students and give them new, connections. It talks about ways that I promote creativity and creation over just consumption, and how one of my big focuses is nurturing student agency, especially with my littles. Creating with littles is a passion of mine. It talks about using things like thinking routines to help students share their voices. And then in the second part of my book, I really do focus on my connected educator journey, which changed my life. It talks about, making connections outside of my school, joining Twitter, about finding my PLN. It talks about as I started to figure out how I could share my voice, and blogging was how I started sharing my voice. And then it leads to me doing even more challenges. I've been presenting all over the place. I'm super excited. I have my first compensated keynote coming up next month. So I'm really excited about that. And, it talks about all of those experiences, me building, my company, Tannenbaum Tech, where I've been providing support to educators. And then it just talks about opportunities that we found in this last year when we were all so separate, and how we can take some of those opportunities forward. So my big thing is the idea of making things stick. And so the techie notes are all the things that I'm kind of compiling together to help educators survive, especially in this year, which is unlike any other. I thought last year was going to be the most crazy year. It turns out this year's crazy in its own right as well. And I think that's one of the reasons I listen every morning, is because with everything going on, educators need support more than ever right now.
Debbie, I love to hear kind of like your journey. I know that book was such a passion project for you. We discuss so frequently how that was such a big moment in your life thus far, to be able to say, okay, I've written a book and I'm going to share my ideas with others. So I love that we're able to celebrate that this morning. When you talk about tuning in, I don't think I've ever asked you this, or at least know the story. How did you get connected to the Teach Better team?
So I actually got connected with the Teach Better team first through the chat, the Teach Better chat, or I guess back then it was Mastery Chat. And so I started participating in that when I started doing Twitter chats. I guess it was 2018. And when I started doing that, then I was also starting to listen to more podcasts. And I think that I was listening to Caitlin Giordano on Teachers on Fire. And she was talking about how they had guest bloggers. And then from there, I sent her an email one morning, and she's like, oh yeah, we'd love for you to blog. And then I joined the Teach Better team at blogging, and I was still and then because of that, I started listening to your podcast. And when I started listening to your podcast, I was like, wait a minute, there's a lot going on here. This is the community that I've kind of been looking for. And through the Teach Better Lives, I really got involved. Oh, I forgot, I'm also a Teach Better admin mastermind person too. I knew I was forgetting something.
So many things.
But through that, through the Teach Better Live, 12-hour live, I heard about becoming an ambassador. And it was one of those things that, like so many things that have happened in my life, I'm like, I'm just going to try for it. What's the worst that can happen is that they say no. And when I found out I had been accepted, I was just like, no way. There's, that's like incredible. And I might not get to participate as much as I'd like in all the events because, life's busy. But it's been such an amazing community to be part of. And then when I found out about the Edupreneur group, that's been phenomenal, as well as I navigate something, having a business that's starting to grow and do things that I've never thought I was going to be part of. Like, there's so many things in the last year that's happened that if you had asked me 2 years ago, I would have been like, nah, that's not going to happen. But it has, and it's awesome.
I think it's so wonderful that you've decided to get involved in so many different elements of the Teach Better family. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Your community should be dynamic. It should have depth. It should allow you to grow as a person, grow as a teacher, share your own voice, amplify voices of others. I mean, really love that there are so many kind of like offshoots of ways to get involved. Yeah. And even in your just reflection now, being able to share your voice with the guest bloggers, being able to build community with the ambassadors. I know, even shout out to Brianne Fennell. We did an exclusive professional development training with our ambassadors yesterday, which Brianne had a major part in. So shout out to all the work that she's doing. And then also to be able to say that you participate in our masterminds. The admin mastermind gets together leaders to talk shop every week. I love that crew. And the Edupreneur mastermind is brand new. And it was truly created for people like you, Debbie, where it's like, I love education. I'm not trying to leave education. I love the work I'm doing, but I really would love to figure out how to grow more effectively, more strategically. And so you kind of get people together to talk shop a little about business because we want to be better educators. It's kind of an interesting dynamic, right?
It's really been a phenomenal experience. I mean, I started by doing, not Voxer, I'm sorry, Clubhouse with Jeff, and just tuning in, and I learned so much through those, conversations on Clubhouse. And then when he said he was starting the group, I was like, this is something I want to be part of because I'm continuing to grow and challenge myself in new ways. And all of the opportunities that have happened because I'm really refining what my message is. And I'm talking about communication. I'm really deciding who I'm trying to serve and how I'm going to serve them, and really focusing on how I can best serve people I serve in my school building, people I serve as far as my blogging community, people who I serve as far as, my coaching clients that's starting to build, like all of those different communities. That group really helps me figure a lot of that out. And a lot of it happens through the conversations that we have as we grow.
Yeah. And I always joke with any educator who's trying to grow a Teachers Pay Teachers store or a coaching offshoot or go write a book. I always tell everybody, you just need a Jeff Gargis, Jeff Gargis, our CEO of the Teach Better team, co-founder of the Teach Better team with Chad Ostrowski. Everyone needs a Jeff Gargis,
And he's just to give him a shout out. I mean, he's been so wonderful. Like one day I check my email and he's like gone through my website and he's giving me advice to improve it. One day he's reading my weekly email newsletter, and he's giving me advice. He's just been such a phenomenal resource. And I'm watching Bobby's comment pop in, and just the idea that, it's all part of that community that you guys have built. And, I so love it because, I made a comment to one of my administrators yesterday morning. I'm like, I'm going live with the Teach Better team. And she's like, who? And I'm like, oh, you need to find the Teach Better team, because I'm always shocked how few people know about it. And I brag about it all the time. My husband jokes that I have a closet full of t-shirts that are ready to go ads, but it really it's just such a great community, and I'm so grateful to be part of it.
Well, we are always looking to not only expand our Teach Better family worldwide, but also obviously foster the connections within them. So I love that you're able to not only bring new people in, but be able to participate in so many things going on with the team. And just, I don't know if Jeff is watching. I saw he had a comment earlier. Jeff, I do want you to know, we don't want you to get too big of a head. Like we think you're okay. Like, let's not be dramatic. So just good to get that little reminder. Debbie, we're going to transition here into some good news. There's some major celebrations this morning. We have a good news story that's all about $1 that I want to explore with you. And then we'll be able to dive into our communication focus for today.
Sounds great.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Daily Drop-In. We're thrilled that you're here with us. You know that our good news story is the first segment of our Daily Drop-In hangout, our morning show on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We love to start off your morning with some love, some positivity, some cool ideas, some inspiration, maybe even some fun tidbits that you can take to your colleagues or your students, or even just to brighten your morning as you get started pouring your coffee, brushing your teeth, and getting ready for the day. Debbie, it is a big day for celebrations. I don't know that you shared this. Where are you located in the world? Where are you streaming from?
I'm streaming from Northern Virginia.
I have to tell you, I don't know what the weather's like in Northern Virginia this morning, but I will tell you that I woke up this morning and it was freezing in my home. And I went outside to let the dogs out before this morning show. And again, it was chilly out. And I'm thinking, kind of feels like summer's over. And just so you know, guys, today, fall equinox, it is officially the first day of fall. I don't feel like I was ready for this. I love my good fall time, but I don't know that I realized that was today, Wednesday, September 22nd, first day of fall.
It is like this year has been going by so fast. It's just crazy. It's raining here. So
yeah,
it's just kind of gloomy right now. So
Well, I hope that it gets better for you. I will say, I'm not trying to be negative. I just thought this was an interesting fact. So, Teach Better Family, we always like to give you maybe something worth discussing. I want to make sure if you choose to discuss this, you do it with a positive spin. But specifically, the fall equinox documents the day that the days begin as of today to get a little bit shorter. The nights are longer and it's cool and crisp weather that begins to roll out. So I'm not saying that to be negative, to say, oh, it's getting dark, people. Days are going to get shorter. But that's a good fact to start off with students, kind of discuss how our world works with the season. So I don't know. I thought it was a good tidbit.
I also like the fact that it's not quite as hot. It's been really hot, and like I'm one of those people who, except for this morning because I had to be up early, that I like to get up and exercise each morning outside, and I have to get up really early when it's warm out. So I kind of like it when it's a little cooler.
Yeah, I have to say I am very, very much a fall winter person. Like summer's great, spring's great, but fall winter is my style. So I'm good with this transition for sure. So good to see all of you popping in the comments. There are also some other days we definitely need to celebrate, Debbie. I feel like these are extremely important for us to note. One is that it's National Ice Cream Day, National Ice Cream Cone Day, to clarify.
Just cones? The ice cream
It says
cone?
just cones, so I think that means you need to go eat ice cream with a cone versus like in a cup. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, at least it's cooler out, so it won't melt everywhere.
There you go. See, these are the positives. Throw on a sweater and go eat an ice cream cone. It's also National Singles Day. I don't know what that necessarily means. American Business Women's Day.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, Chainmail Day, Dear Diary Day. Who knew? We apparently need to journal today. You and I were talking about journaling before we came live.
Yeah, we were.
And so it's also Hobbit Day, always good. An International Day of Radiant Peace. National Centennials Day, National Elephant Appreciation Day. We could go on and on. The most fun one, I think, is that it's National Girls Night Day. I don't know how many people need that celebration, but you have permission. Go have a
Well, I'm going to tell my daughter that because, the two of us tonight are having our, mom-daughter time. So I'll have to tell her it's National Girls Night Out.
Yeah, make a day of it. I think that's a good idea. I celebrate the whole evening with her. That would be wonderful. Yeah, the other element that we wanted to throw at all of you this morning is that we have a really cool, good news story that we'd love to highlight. This comes from Atlanta, the NBC. It says, "Change the world $1 at a time. LaGrange man proving small acts of kindness can go a long way." So Anthony Telly created a program where he collects just $1 from people all around his community to donate to somebody in need. And he's showing how small acts of kindness can really add up. So he continued to do this. He's raised about $8,000, and he goes around and not only is able to collect $1 from members of his community, but is using this to do small acts of kindness within the community. So this could be as silly as buying ice cream for an elementary student, or giving back to somebody who is in need of some sort of financial support. He says, "When I do stuff like this, it's just overwhelming joy." Telly says people say, "Oh my gosh, how did you get this?" And he says that $1 at a time can really feel like it changes the world. So this is a really, really interesting article, and it kind of goes through all the different things that he's been able to do thus far. But I think that could be an interesting article to dive into, of the power of just, giving $1. I think that was kind of a cool concept.
That's amazing. And I just think, a lot of times we talk about if we can just do things like 1% better, and that those little small efforts, how they can really build up. And especially now when, a lot of people are really overwhelmed, thinking about if you just do one small thing, or you have everybody do one small thing, the impact you can make together.
Well, Debbie, I love that spin that you just provided, because you're looking at not just being the act of giving $1, right? A financial element, but really looking at that $1 as something that is a small thing that we can choose to do. Obviously, we want to be very appreciative of our income, but $1, if you think of $1 being a small act of kindness, if you can look at that and say, okay, what other small act of kindness can I provide to others today? That's something that I know has been a consistent theme on Daily Drop-In. What are those small things that we can do, which I love?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So good. I know. So there are so many different things that we can do this morning. I know it's been an incredibly challenging year, but especially since it is mid-September, beginning of fall, kind of doing that refresh, doing that reflection has been a theme all week, not only in the small acts of kindness that we can do, Debbie, but I know we've been discussing the theme this week is revamping and reflecting our communication. I can only imagine that you have tips and tricks and have been doing a lot of reflection in this area,
Yeah,
not only in your role supporting teachers, but in your role, so supporting our stakeholders as well. So should we get started in that dialogue this morning?
absolutely.
All right, here we go. All right, good morning, everyone. We are going to get started with our brainstorm bank, which, as you know, if you head to teachbetter.com/daily drop-in, you'll be able to submit questions there. We've actually been getting a lot of questions. And Debbie, if you don't mind, I'm going to throw you some of those today
Sure.
because people have been submitting some questions in our brainstorm bank in hopes to have a brainstorm partner. And I thought, who better than for us to talk shop and be a brainstorm buddy for somebody in our Teach Better family.
Awesome.
I first want to start with our theme, though. Our theme this week is about revamping our communication. We focus on Daily Drop-In on effective uses for communication the first few weeks of our morning show relaunch in August. Now we're kind of taking some intentional time to reflect on how that process is going. Tell me a little bit about your communication style in general in the classroom.
Sure. Well, like I said, I work with both teachers and students, and it's funny because I was really taking some time yesterday to reflect on this and think about this. And this year, I've actually, with my teachers, really changed my communication style quite a bit. In the past, I've spent a lot of time emailing teachers. And my rationale behind emailing teachers was I was allowing them to deal with what the action I needed them to take when they had time to deal with it. So I had nothing but best intentions. And there are still times where I use email. But one of the things I've noticed this year is that, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, is that every time I empty my inbox, it's filled again. Every time we think we know what to expect as educators, there's some new mandate, either from the state or from our district changing, whether it's social distancing or whether it's something dealing with masks or whatever. There's a lot of communication coming through email right now. And so one of the things that I've intentionally been doing this year is I've been spending more time working on using my communication to connect versus asking people to act. And so a lot of times that's in that first hour of the morning or the after school, just going around and checking in with the people I work with, the staff I work with. And sometimes through those organic conversations, it will come up with a way I can support them better. And sometimes they just need someone to listen.
Sure.
And it's really been wonderful because I'm actually learning a lot. This is my third year in this building. So I have relationships with staff based on the fact we've been through 3 of the craziest years in education. I mean, I feel like we've gone through it all. And I love the time where I can just quickly go in and just touch base with somebody and see how they're doing, see if there's any way I can support them. Last Friday, I had 3 15-minute conversations, 3 5-minute conversations. And at the end of it, it turned out that 3 teachers needed support with the same type of thing. And I was like, oh, wait, I know a program that's going to help your students with this. And this week I'm getting to do those lessons with them, finding a program that's going to amplify their learning just from a conversation. Teachers going, I love the fact that you're doing this with my students, but I'd love to learn more. And I'd be like, oh, I can help you with that. And so I've really been intentionally, whenever I'm, trying to do those check-ins. And it's funny because I spend all my time on a computer, but it's really been wonderful. As tech coaches, we had a meeting and we were talking, we have a podcast club and we were talking about, do you have small talk in emails? And I was like, I've actually been writing less emails to teachers because I find that everybody just wants to feel connected.
Yeah.
And so it's really kind of changed a lot. And it's also kind of made me think about when I do communicate with people outside of school, I'm trying to make it more conversational. Like a lot of times with your email messages, you do the same thing because I want people to feel like there's that connection there because we're all so overwhelmed. We have to be better together. And And it's made me think about families too. Like, are we sending email parents, parents communication through email, which is obviously sometimes easier, but right now, a lot of our families, the only time they're getting phone calls is when they're dealing with contact tracing. Maybe we need to think about other ways we can reach out to families as well. And so since I get a chance to work with everybody, it's just really made me think about that this year.
There's so many different pieces we can reflect on with communication. And I really think that the focus of trying to email less or be more strategic with
Mhm.
those emails can absolutely be something that not only affects teachers and students, but also our stakeholders, our parents, our leadership. Those are all kind of the layers of communication that this week specifically we want to go through some intentional reflection on. As you're thinking through the way in which you communicate, whether it be in person or in an email, have you ever found yourself communicating in an ineffective way that after some reflection, you're like, okay, I'm going to adjust this. You made an adjustment and you saw some sort of positive impact on that reflective choice?
Absolutely. I think a lot of times all of us get really siloed in what we think we need to get done. And so sometimes what we think is really effective, when somebody else reads it, they're going to read it differently. You know, they can't tell your tone, they can't tell, they can misread it. And so sometimes, really thinking about, I've had times where I've sent an email and somebody at the end was like, oh, well, what you said was, not clear, or I didn't like the way you said that, and had nothing but best intentions. And that kind of also feeds into that, checking in person. When someone's with you in person, there's no doubting what your intention is,
Mm.
but, I was talking to my students about, we did a digital citizenship lesson this week on digital drama. And, when you put something online or you put something in an email, it can be misinterpreted. And so it's just so important to really think about, if you are going to send something in written communication, really making sure that before you send, you pause and you really make sure that its message can't be misinterpreted. And I think about that a lot when I blog as well, because I do a lot of communication through writing, and really thinking about, how will people interpret this? Is this meeting my intention? Because I spend a lot of time reflecting, and I want to make sure that I'm giving what people need, and not just, putting something out there that could potentially make someone stay harder.
Well, we've talked about that numerous times when we have been able to reflect on communication in the past, that our intention to communicate through text really eliminates some of those other elements that we can pull from, like
Yeah.
tone and pieces of that body language becomes irrelevant when you're reading a text. And so the opportunity to communicate through other mediums, whether it be in-person communication or a
Mhm.
video, adds in different
Yeah.
elements to your communication that you might want to consider. As I'm thinking through the options we have, sometimes tech communication where you're messaging back and forth, sometimes that language communication is essential, is
Yeah.
is the only option in a situation. And so if you, for example, are being forced to write an email, that's the way that you have to communicate. Do you have a strategy that you use after you've written the email, after the message has been documented, what you do to kind of reread or review the information to think through that lens of miscommunication? Is there something specifically, a strategy that you feel like it's helped you?
I feel like trying to take a little bit of a pause before I send it and then rereading it is a great strategy. I know when I was in the classroom, sometimes I would have a colleague read my email, especially if it was going to a parent, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't, writing anything that could be misinterpreted. So sometimes having somebody else look at it is a great strategy. But a lot of times just taking that pause, if you don't have somebody else to do that, is really important, because email and texting is so fast that
Mhm.
sometimes, you send something and it's automatic. And, especially when I was writing with parents, sometimes I would write back right away, especially when I was in the beginning of my career. And then the parent would write back right away. And it would cause this feeling of, I have to do this now, versus taking that time to intentionally really make sure that you're sending the right message.
Yeah, so there's so many, like there's like three pieces you just identified I think is really important. One is taking a pause The other is having somebody read your communication, give you feedback. And then the other is that conflict of feeling like you need to do it right now because now you're in a communication back and forth that's seemingly quick.
Yeah.
So strictly for that communication that you're providing to a parent, really having in mind that educators, this is our job, right? This is our professional life. But for parents, it's their personal life because we're dealing with their children. And so keeping in mind the work hours, the times in which you feel like you can best communicate and be held accountable for your communication with stakeholders is important. Absolutely. I know a lot of educators can type out their email and they do it in the evening, but they schedule it to be sent later because they don't want to necessarily engage in too much dialogue too late in the evening. That's a great strategy. But when it comes to having a colleague read your email, Debbie, I feel like we've all had that moment where we're typing an email and we're like, this has to go well. Either it's like a high stakes communication of some sort, and you're like, I need this to be as clear as possible. So you go down the hall to a colleague and knock on their door and you're like, can I just take 2 seconds? Will you read this for me? Right. They're not only able to read the communication and be up to speed on what's going on, but also give you a different lens or perspective at, the parental perspective, the other avenues that they can kind of see your message through is so valuable.
Absolutely. I just, and it's hard because I feel like we feel so rushed that sometimes it's hard to take that pause.
Yeah. So let's focus on that pause. I think the pause is important because even just the concept of responding quickly typically has an emotional connection, an emotional tie to what we're doing. Either it's, it could be anxiousness, it could be excitement, it could be any one of the multitude of emotions. But typically when you're doing communication quickly, you can come across different concerns. I know that all of us have horror stories of sending emails too quickly. I do love the feature, by the way, in Google now that when you send it, you have like 13 seconds to like undo the sent email. Do you know that? You know that I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's always nice. I will say though, Debbie, if you're in an environment where you can't have somebody read your email, sometimes reviewing the context in a different way is helpful. So rather than rereading an email that you've written, I have a Chrome extension here that reads the text out loud to me. I use it very frequently for my own needs. And so when I use that, more often than not, I catch some of that misinterpretation because versus reading the information in front of me, I'm listening to it. So it adds a different dynamic of my message. Have you ever used a strategy like that before?
I have not. But I definitely have, if I'm at home, sometimes I'll, have my husband like read it through for me as well. I haven't really done that, but that's a great strategy as well.
Yeah, I think thinking through different opportunities to kind of review our text is always a good suggestion. I do see that Brienne is in here now. Brienne, we were talking about you earlier. We gave you a big shout out. So we're so appreciative that you're popping in this morning. You did a great job with your exclusive professional development to the ambassadors yesterday. We love that you communicate all and organize all that sector of our incredible ambassador program that also has the exclusive PD and the mentorship program within it and everything else. So shout out to you, girl. You were awesome. It was all on sketchnoting. Debbie, have you ever done the sketchnoting before?
I've dabbled with it a little bit. It's definitely something that's a work in progress for me.
Yeah.
I love the idea of it, but it's just not, it's just not something I've been able to really dedicate the amount of time I need to. I went to, a workshop by Sylvia Duckworth when I was at ISTE, and I've tried a couple of other things to learn, but it's not quite there yet. I'm not going to say it's not going to ever be there. It's just not there yet.
Brienne was able to give so many tips and tricks. And even if those of you listening right now live with us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, or even listening after the fact on Teach Better Talk podcast, shout out if you want to go try out sketchnoting, if you want to explore that avenue, kind of that avenue of communication, that could be a great opportunity to introduce that style of communication to your students as well. Go reach out to Brienne Fennell. She did a great job, not only telling us about sketchnoting, but actually allowing us to try out some strategies and make it into action. So I really loved your work yesterday, Brienne. Really good job. That was right before our live where we rose a glass for Joshua Stamper's book celebration. So it was so fun to kind of go from a training on that exclusive Zoom to then, be able to be with Josh in his big moment to close out the night. So it was a long day yesterday.
And one of the things about sketchnoting is the research, at least that I've read, shows that it's really a great way to help kids synthesize information. And so that, that part of it really intrigues me, because anything that can help our kids, reach deeper levels of understanding and processing their knowledge is something that I really feel strongly about, because we don't want just them to memorize and forget. So
absolutely. Debbie, I know we were focusing on communication, that reflection element. If you had to give one piece of advice, one strategy that you think, okay, if you do nothing else this week related to communication, reflection, do this one or consider this one thing, what would be your strategy you would provide?
Well, I think that really just thinking about what type of communication is really the best fit for what you need to do. Is this something that you really just need to send a quick email about? Or is this something that you need to touch base with somebody? What's really your intention? And looking at the big picture, not just I'm going to send this email real quick. Because I've also had situations where I inadvertently got an email I wasn't supposed to get. And, sometimes when that happens, that's a problem too. So really think about what's the best way, and thinking about who you're communicating to. Some people are much better communicating through email. And then other people, they don't check their email as regularly, and you kind of just know that. So you really have to think about what's the best way to reach the person you're reaching, and pick the stuff, just like we try to help our students use this the learning style that best fits them. Think about the communication style of the person you're reaching out to.
I love it. Such good piece of advice, Debbie. We have some questions in our brainstorm bank. Do you mind if we transition to some questions that were submitted by our friends over at teachbetter.com/brainstorm bank?
Nope, that sounds great.
All right. So we have a few questions here. Two specifically, I think, are really good for us to discuss. One message says, I work in an elementary school and feel that I need a boost in the feeling of community at our school. What can I do to help spark positive change as a teacher? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that we really need to think about the wonderful things that are going on. Elementary schools can be a place where you have a lot of closed doors. And, this is my 22nd year being in elementary school, so I know it very well. But sometimes we just need to know the amazing things that are going on in our school. It's one of the things that I love about sharing our school story, especially on social media and on our website. I feel really passionate about that. I remember when I was my first year as a tech coach, my school wasn't really involved in social media, and people started to, join and follow our hashtag. And as they did that, one of the special ed teachers in my school came up to me and she goes, I had no idea what they were doing upstairs in 4th grade. And teachers started to see the positive things other teachers were doing. And I think that that's something that we really need to try to encourage. One of the things they say is that if you're not telling your school story, then, somebody else is telling it. And there's so many amazing things that are going on. We really need to focus on that. And, at least where I am, we're having mostly virtual staff meetings right now. So it's not like you're sitting next to people and having conversations. So thinking about ways that we can foster some of those good news sharing moments, through that use, like I was working with a 2nd grade class yesterday, and we were using a program called Wixie, and they were doing butterfly life cycle. Well, some of my kids decided to draw. Some of my kids decided to use, images in the program. And then some of them made videos for each step. Like, that is awesome. A bunch of 2nd graders doing that. And so something like that, sharing that out with the rest of the school community, somebody else might be like, oh, wow, that's so cool. Maybe I can try this. And, just building up that feeling of, that we all can kind of be there for each other, because I think it's so easy to lose sight of that if you don't. I think that those types of moments are crucial.
Well, and I think your connection here, so beautifully done, Debbie. It's like we planned this. Your suggestion is about enhancing your communication, right?
Yeah.
You want to have a positive impact. You want to inspire and empower, your school culture to be more positive and solution seeking. Try out communicating more effectively on not only the things that are going on in your classroom, but amplify the voices of things going on in classrooms across the building, because that
Absolutely.
allows for celebration, that allows for people to take new ideas. And you said try something new or inspire, get inspired to try out something that was tried in a similar classroom. I mean, I love that you've tied this all in, that communication can actually not only be a way to share information, but also a way to create a different culture within the community you're communicating to.
Absolutely. And, as much as I talked about in person, talking to people in person, I do think that there's a role of, that communication also telling that story and really sharing that. And, it's just, I think that a lot of times we get so busy in the churn of what we're doing, we forget about that.
Absolutely. Debbie, there's so many different things I think we can recommend. And I know you're a wealth of knowledge of being connected to people and loving just these different resources that have supported you to grow as an educator, as an edupreneur, as everything else that you continue to explore. I'd love to transition here into some recommendations. I know that we have one specifically on this beautiful, crisp Wednesday morning that we want to recommend to each and every one of you as you continue your growth, not only in communication, but in being a little bit better today than you were yesterday and a little bit better tomorrow than you were today. But also, Debbie, I think that you have so many resources you keep in mind that anything else we can throw in there, I think, is always a good thing. So we'll be right back. Wednesday mornings, we always love to have an element where we are able to recommend a tool or resource to our community. I know, Debbie, you've been able to share on your book that you were able to publish earlier this year. That is such a wonderful resource. And if you missed that summary, I encourage you all to head back earlier in the show. Debbie was able to give just a wonderful summary of what is in that book, what you can expect as a reader. So it's always good to be able to recommend tools from our friends that join us on Daily Drop-In. I know even, Debbie, we were discussing an element of that we could recommend of Lindsay Titus's journal that I know has come up numerous times on the Daily Drop-In. I know that that's not specifically our whole recommendation. We have one more that we really want to focus on, but do you want to share a little bit about why you love Lindsay's journal?
Well, I'm actually on journal number 2 of Lindsay's journal. One of the reasons I really like it is how it helps me focus every day. Every day it starts off with, really making you giving you like a morning affirmation, a morning mirror moment. But every morning when I start off, I do my gratitude. I focus on 3 things I'm grateful for. And I love doing that in the morning. And some mornings it's, something as simple as the fact that I woke up and I was able to get a wonderful workout outside, or I'm looking forward to working with certain teachers. And I always start with that. And then it gives you a chance to reflect on those affirmations and those morning messages, talking about how do you feel, talking about what things you're wondering about. And there's so many things that you wonder about. And sometimes just putting it down on paper is so essential. And then what I've been doing with her journal is at the end of the day, I come back to it and she has a place for celebrations. And I love that. You and I talked about this, I guess, a couple months ago, that sometimes we do need to celebrate ourselves. And sometimes if we don't intentionally take that time to celebrate ourselves, we kind of can get lost in the last thing that happened versus the whole day in general. And then the last thing her journal does is gives you 3 words to describe each day. And so it really helps me kind of bookend my days with starting it in very intentionally and ending it intentionally. And it's so funny because I'm on journal number 2. I've done this journal once, but every time I do it, I read it differently. It's like, I think we've talked about, you listen to a podcast or you read a book, the second time it's going to have a very different, feeling for you than it might have had before. And so it's really, I've done a lot of work with Lindsay. I did her Ignite Your Legacy. I'm part of her Creative Connections mentoring group. And it really has helped me to look at things differently. Hey, Megan, and really look at how I'm viewing things. And this year it's just been, it helped me approach every day with more of a positive mindset and more of a gratitude mindset, blessings mindset, so that I'm really going to work with the idea of I'm here to help others, my teachers, my students, my administrators.
Oh, so wonderful. I always love everything Lindsay Titus. She is a part of our speakers network. If you want to go learn more about Lindsay and the work that she's doing, I recommend all of you head to teachbetter.com/speakers network. She's featured there as an educator that you can not only connect with, learn from, and then obviously she has this incredible journal that I know so many of our community members use. The recommendation that we'd really love to highlight today on this crisp Wednesday morning actually is a podcast. And Debbie, I know you and I listen to podcasts all the time. There's so many different ways to consume resources right now. And while our recommendations can be anything from blogs, books, anything in between, we think a podcast could really be something worthwhile. We've been able to recommend podcasts before. However, this one is those short little quick clips that we think it can really add for a different element to your day. This could be something you're listening to on a very short commute to work. It's only 10 minutes long. It could be something that you only throw on when you're in line ordering coffee. And then when you get back in your car and you are finished with that quick experience, you can turn it off. It can be something that as you're out walking the dog for a few minutes, you throw on in your headphones. 10 minutes really allows us to kind of fit it in a multitude of ways in our day. I'm not sure if you guys have checked this out, but there is a podcast by Vicki Davis called the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. The reason I want to recommend this is because it's truly only 10 minutes long. It's very quick and down and dirty. It gets to the root of those hard-hitting questions very quickly because the conversation is so stinking short. And as you go through, there are actually topics ranging all over the spectrum of education. The most recent episodes focus on SEL, what students need to know about money, talking about Google, helping refugee students, using pop culture to teach writing, helping struggling readers, going into Google free applied digital skills and curriculum, gamification. I mean, these are a variety of topics. And so while Vicki Davis, her incredible 10-minute podcast is not a part of the podcast network, it's still a podcast that the Teach Better team very much supports and has featured actually numerous members of the Teach Better team as well. So a little shout out for those of you looking for a new recommendation on a quick and easy to listen to podcast. Go check that one out for sure this morning.
And Rae, just as you mentioned that, one episode of her podcast actually has become a huge part of my message. She was interviewing in 2017 Pana Asafatana, who teaches in the American School in Taipei. And she was talking about working with her littles on the iPads, and creating with littles is a huge passion of mine. And that started from that podcast. And then from there, I connected with Pana on Twitter. Pana sent me her talk on the subject, which I share a lot in my presentations. And I started my journey into icon literacy based on that podcast. Talk about a full connection.
Oh, I love it. That's so cool. And I love that from listening to a podcast, you chose to connect, reach out, and share resources with somebody. That is so cool, Debbie. I love that your commitment to being a connected educator. That's so fabulous. Debbie, I know that people can connect with you in so many different places. Would you mind recommending or sharing with us, I apologize, your website and your Twitter handle again so people can stay connected?
Well, it's super easy. I'm Tannenbaum Tech on everything. My website's tannenbaumtech.com. I'm on Twitter, which is primarily where I spend most of my time on Tannenbaum Tech, though I have made a commitment through my blog this month that I'm going to spend more time on Instagram through my Teach Better blog because I want to get better at it. I'm also on Boxer, on Clubhouse, not as much as I used to be. I'm on Facebook. On Facebook, I even have a Tannenbaum Tech Facebook group now. So if you search up Tannenbaum Tech, almost anywhere you can find me.
That's wonderful. Debbie, thank you for all that you do, not only in coming on Daily Drop-In, but also choosing to be such an active participant in all things Teach Better family. And we obviously so appreciate the work that you do every single day with teachers and students in the schools. So fun having you a part of this discussion. I appreciate you being here this morning. For everybody else, thank you for joining us on this Wednesday morning, as I'm saying Monday, holy cow, Wednesday morning. We will be live tomorrow morning again for Daily Drop-In at 7 a.m. Eastern, Thursday, bright and early, with the incredible Joshua Stamper. He's going to come on and talk leadership communication, which I know is a very, very hot topic and something we're all striving to improve on. He also is going to be with us as we continue to celebrate his book launch week. of him finally putting out this incredible project to the world yesterday. Thank you for those of you that joined us live to raise a glass to Joshua Stanford, all the work he continues to do. And obviously tomorrow morning we'll be able to continue that celebration. So Debbie, thank you again. I hope all of you enjoy your last sip of coffee as you get started for the best Wednesday. The best fall Wednesday is ahead of you. And we wish you nothing but incredible success. All right. We'll see you in the morning, guys.
Bye.
See ya.